Hey, I'm Mike, and this is my Mark III drift car. I built this for our ECS Summer Drift Series. I swapped a V8 into it, did a ton of work to it, but there's one thing I've always hated, and I kind of was forced to do it out of time constraints, but we're gonna deal with it now. The reason I really wanted to do a Mark III is it has kind of box flare reminiscent line. And I thought if I could section those and kind of wide body it along that, it'd be really cool, kind of 80s, 90s period box fender flare styling that I'm a big fan of. The main reason I'm not a fan of bolt-on plastic flares like this is you have no up travel. To have an area for you to rivet on or bolt on the plastic flare and get the car at a nice stance, I only have 1.25 inches of up travel of sheet metal in between. So it doesn't take much of a bump for the tire to get into the fender, try to stop, and then your spring rate goes infinite as well, which makes the car handle goofy. And they kind of look like an afterthought Band-Aid, because they are. So I hate them. While we're at it, I'm hoping we can fix my second most hated thing, and that's this upper vent. This is actually a 05 Mustang like quarter window vent turned inside out. I didn't have enough surface area with just the lower vent, which I do think looks okay. So this was the fastest thing I could get my hands on that sort of worked. But it doesn't fit the body lines, it's crooked over here, and I mounted them too far forward and I hate it. So these have to go. I have a plan, I'll present that to you soon. Grab these trailer fenders, which is a nice arc, really cheap, pretty rugged. I'm gonna cut out the wheel well a lot bigger, weld this in, try to make that another 2 inches wider back here. This is a chunk of rear quarter panel. Smash. I want this to kind of have a big entrance at the front of it, like a big scoop. So instead of the vents, I can have kind of like the Group B Audi S1. In order to have the scoop on the front, the quarter is going to have to move back a good amount. Then the wheel well doesn't line up. So I have the replacement wheel well that I can use to recenter it and get rid of the rest at the same time. A drift car is meant to be used, at best, usually like a 20-footer car. If you get any closer than that, they look like crap. I'm gonna shoot to make this like a 5-10-footer car, but it doesn't need to be. I'm not going for perfection here. Eventually, I'm gonna smash it up. I want just a panel I can hammer back out, get it looking close to how it used to, and have it look cooler than it does.
What's a 5 or 10-footer car?
If you're that far away, it doesn't look like a piece of shit. The front of this car is 5 inches wider per side, which is a lot. So I had to cut the fender and pull it out and then go with this oversized, plastic fender flare here. As you can see, the tire has snagged it a couple times now, and I crinkled the fender pretty good because it sucked it in towards the coilover. It's just full lock or close to it. I hit a bump and it sucks the fender in. Same issue as the rear. Basically, you can't have any up travel and have these mounted securely. So they gotta go. Trash. What I want from this is, you've got these two nice body lines. I wanna emphasize those, but that's where I want the car wider. I'm gonna cut it on the outside of this one to save as much material as I can for the upper part, and that's what I wanna use. I'm gonna do the opposite and cut as far into the upper part as I can with this fender, so then I can overlay them, and I'll have to just figure out what the patch panel in between will be. I'm gonna try to just figure out some sort of wide body out here. I think I'm gonna get a little more spacer as well, just in case I wanna run different tires in the future or a different wheel, get a little more clearance. I can take it up a spacer now, and then in the future, whatever I want will fit, hopefully. So these are the sheet metal parts we're gonna work with. We're gonna start digging in pretty soon. You'll notice there's nothing to do with bumpers here, because I don't know what I'm gonna do with that yet. That's a future Mike problem, and we'll figure it out once the rest of it's kind of mocked up. So we'll start cutting some stuff up. It's gonna stink a little bit when I cut this thing. I've already figured out that this doesn't move the way I want it to. Because as I lay this edge over, it's too long up here, so it straightens out the panel. And I want it to be, you know, a box flare that meets back into the front of the fender. And then the opposite's happening here. As I pulled this up, it's sucking this part in. Also not what I want. So, probably gonna have to cut both of those off. Or get my hands on a shrinker stretcher so I can move some sheet metal around. This is gonna take some staring at stuff and poking at things to get right. Oh, that's much better. I think I have to cut the wheel well bigger.
That could be your conscience. So I'm gonna stand over there and you go, man, I think I should just be like, that's a horrible idea.
Yeah, you can do that the whole time. I'm fine with that. You're an idiot.
You're not an idiot, you just have poor taste. We give you your front point, and then I would mount the rear where you want it, and then make your cut, and then have this float and position that, and then fill it in.
If I'm gonna add something to the middle, I might as well add all of it.
Yeah.
And even if the wheel well looks a little goofy,
Yeah.
I'm gonna drive it twice and ruin the arch anyway, so
Yeah. And I think once you're done, you're not gonna notice it.
yeah.
The two. If you're gonna cut it right now, I could hold one end, you could hold
Oh,
the
that's
other
true.
end. And then we could space it to where you think you get your arch right, and then measure that, and measure your gap here. measure your
We
gap
could
there.
teamwork, that does seem better.
Yeah.
Let's do that. After discussion with Shane, I'm trying to figure out, I'm running too big a wheel for the car, so I have to change the shape of the wheel well anyway. So it makes sense, you know, as I'm bringing the fender out into a larger arc, that's the same length it used to be, but going a lot further. So, you know, it winds up being way too short. So I have to add material somewhere. But because of the wheel well issue, it makes the most sense to try to make the wheel well bigger and alleviate that issue, as well as how the piece is too short at the same time. I'm gonna try to make a piece that replicates this, you know, the angle, and then this body line, and then the rolled edge here. So that's the next thing I'm gonna try to do, is make a filler piece. Then I'll weld that in and start again on trying to figure out this top portion. Hey. Kinda looks like a thing. Definitely looks like a flat spot. Whatever. So I lengthened the fender, which worked out nice. But then next issue is I wanted it to curve inward a bit, but there was too much material up here. So I was looking at it and I'm like, well, if I just cut a wedge out of right here and pull it back in, that would change this arc and fix that. Which it did, except it lowered the wheel well, which is not really what I wanted. Nothing I could do about it now, especially after I cut it. It did give me sort of the look I'm after, but now I'm gonna have some ride height issues to deal with. In hindsight, had I cut a little wedge out of here, probably would have done what I wanted, but oh well. So the next thing I'm gonna do is I gotta finish the front of the fender here. So I have the piece off the original fender. So I should be able to cut that off and kind of get this body line back and then kind of overlap, or well, overlap till I figure out where I want to cut it off and then weld that back on. So once that's together, I kind of have a little cardboard template of the back part to keep the fender where I want it. Then I was playing with cutting this arc because I want to cut it lower so it's not, flat's going to look silly, it's going to be downward just a little bit. So I was kind of just playing with tape a couple different ways to see what looked right. Doesn't really matter until I figure out the front, but I don't know, something to play with.
Is this how you imagine it going?
Painfully, yeah. Yeah. I agree.
Yeah, you're gonna have to wait.
I don't want to.
Get the side down. Which means you have to get the whole back one.
Yeah, I don't like your idea. He's telling me I need to do the rear before I can figure out the bottom of the front. And he's kind of right. But I was trying not to pull the whole thing apart at once. Although it doesn't really matter. Just before I can do anything to the side and the rear, I have to do a bunch of, like, I don't know, removal surgery. And it's not gonna be fun. I just needed to, like, see it kind of started looking at a huge hole. And this does make it look very wide. I'd like to have like a slight curve to it, but it'll be fine for this.
If you get it outside, it'll look better because you won't be 3 inches off of it.
Right. I am gonna have to cut the bottom of that fender and make it longer.
Oh yeah, it's like 2 inches too short now.
Yeah. But if I cut it where it's already like crinkled.
Oh, you can fix the crinkles.
Yeah, multitask. Well, good.
All right, great. Well, fucking get it done.
Thanks, Matt.
You're welcome. Bye.
Got the top filler piece sort of figured out. It's gonna take just a little massaging, but before I do that, I'm gonna get this to fit as nice as I can. Before I bother welding it, I'm gonna trace it out and make another one for the other side. So that way it'll be close to the same. Save me some time there. Supposed to really like preload it. If you like took your time and made everything fit nice, it should fit already, then you should be able to weld it. Preloading it is putting tension into the panel, which isn't good, but it's easier. Sort of. I don't know if it's easier. I'm doing it. If you tack it in a bunch of little places, make sure it's nice and, pretty stable. Then you weld just short sections and keep moving around, like skip every other one and just keep working your way back and forth. It minimizes the warping. And now it did warp a little bit. I can feel it back here. That was actually just a little hole in it, and in the process of patching that, I can feel right where that was, because now it's movable. But it's never going to be perfect. It's not half bad. What's cool is I definitely have to like mess with the wheel opening and stuff, but I'm waiting till the fender, like I haven't done the back of the fender yet. So I want to figure that out once the like side skirt stuff's done. So this is still kind of free to move. Once I have it kind of locked into place, then I can play with the hammer and kind of like massage certain areas and try to get it a little better. But for now, this is as far as I'm going to go. I'm going to swap to the other side. I already measured out all the areas. I cut this fender and then marked them on the other one and cut that. So that should go a lot quicker. I'm not figuring it out, I'm just copying it. So yeah, it should be relatively straightforward. This is the piece I cut off the top of the other one, because I cut down into here to make it look right. So I kept the piece, so that way I can trace it and make both sides close to the same. But that'll also show me where my weld line was for the front, so I can patch it in the same spot again. I was trying to figure out why this didn't line up very well, and it's because I didn't make this cut yet. Which makes a lot more sense. Like, man, this piece looks way too big. I'm like, yeah, I didn't cut the other 2 inches off this piece yet. It's tricky because the fender has to go back. So I gotta trim this little edge before I can really check that. Yeah, it's close. See the big like wrinkle here though? I'll have to fix that. Might not work, or I might make it like a big mess, but close enough. No.
What made you come to that decision?
It's like every time I look at it, there's something not quite right. I still haven't like really put my finger on what it is yet, but I've definitely come to the conclusion that I'm not happy with it. So I'm definitely gonna have to cut them back up and do that again and figure out what I like and don't like. So it's closer. It was definitely worth doing to like get an idea of like the profile I wanted and that type of thing, but some things need to change for sure. Because I made the front and I hate it and I want to cut it all off and do it again.
It looks like you opted not to.
Yeah, I saw it the other day.
Yeah. I hate it.
You got the lip here, which
Yeah.
you could have got out with some blending.
Hey, yeah, I didn't try very hard to get this.
You just wanted to see it.
Yeah.
So
And
what do you hate?
all of it. Well, I don't really know. It's that's what I'm trying to pinpoint is why it looks so stupid.
Is it on? You've obviously looked at it on the ground, right?
Oh yeah. And I put a bigger tire on it to make sure that it wasn't just fitment that was getting me.
It's funny
I
because
think I know
it's
what
not
you don't like.
anything big. It's a culmination of some.
It's
a bunch of
yeah,
small
exactly.
things.
Like the big like layout it's close.
Mhm.
It's just there's a couple little details that are ruining the shit out of it.
You know what I think I don't like? Now that I see it, let's see. I feel like this needs to be more boxy.
More boxy?
No,
Yeah.
that's not it for me. I think this needed to be taller.
Well, I think this needs to be lower, or vice versa. Yeah, I agree. I think
it seems like it dips
is-
down kind of weird, at least from this angle.
I was thinking of taking this edge and trying to like ease it a little bit, like pull it out to here. Try to get it into a bigger arc. I think that would fix some of it too. But I have concluded I don't like it, and something needs to change.
Right. But I think if you see the rear, and if you're happy with the rear, then you can match some lines to the rear
But
and
then
make it look good.
Matt brought up a good point. What's to stop me from making the same mistake on the rear and hating that too? So then I'll do the rear, then
Well,
I'll fix
see,
the
that's the
front.
thing. You
and
don't.
be like, oh,
it's
shit, I
it's
need to
pretty
fix the
obvious
rear
that at
again.
this point you don't know what to fix on the front, so you might as well do the rear. And yeah, maybe you will, but
Who's right? Who's right?
Yeah. I could definitely make that nicer because it is a lump right here.
right.
Yeah, I wouldn't change the finish. I like how that line is almost parallel with the inner fender line. Like I like that it ends in a square.
I think it needs to
The
come down.
end.
Yeah, I like that it ends with that.
This.
That needs to come down.
Come down.
But I was lining up with the door thing, but that might not even be worth it.
No.
Just
Well,
bring it
here's
down
the
to here.
problem, is this whole section is lower. And then
I know.
it slopes up in the back. That's why that's looking weird. This
Right.
needs
Yeah.
to come down.
So dropping this to like here.
And I think if you bring that down to make it match, it's gonna fix your door and lower section issue without you even having to cut. You're coming up too high here. It needs to be like that, and then it's all like a nice equal.
You're right. That does fix it. That fixes here a bit too.
That's pretty good.
That fixes many things.
Wow, look at that. Just happened.
Nicely done, Matt. Oh, yeah, I guess. You'd have to
Come back, yeah, come back all the way to there.
Come back in there.
Yep.
And then go up to there.
Yeah. Need like an inch.
The guys here that I trust their input on this and they have an eye for what I'm trying to do here. If they all say, you know, yeah, that same line looks weird, then that makes it a no-brainer. While I'm decently happy with this at the moment, I still hate the front. And then the front and the rear have to work together. So once I adjust that, maybe I'd have to adjust this. I probably shouldn't have welded this whole edge, but I'm pretty happy with it. But I don't know, I welded the last one and then now I have to cut it apart again, so.